Welcome. Dale would be so touched by how many people joined his wife Julie, his sons Matthew and Timothy, here today. Dale was so hopeful that today's celebration of his life would give all of you, his friends, his colleagues, and his beloved community of Juneau, better insight into the man who was Dr. Dale Staley. Dale was able to identify key people in the various stages of his journey. By the end of our service, these speakers will have filled in some gaps that we might have had. I know for myself, his friend, and his colleague for many, many years, that I am still learning about Dale, who I already knew to be a passionate educator and a dedicated husband and father. Key components of our program, in addition to the speakers, are a slideshow of photos and some music played by past and present pep band members. I should also acknowledge the Crimson Quartet, a student string group that played music as you came in today. Dale hoped that we would together not get caught up in our grief and sorrow about his death, but instead help Julie, Matthew, and Timothy celebrate the tremendous life that they shared. Of course, he also hoped that we would keep this to under an hour, which may or may not happen for us today. A couple of reminders. Please turn off any electronic devices that you might have. In Dale's honor, if one goes off, I might have to confiscate it and add it to his collection. Also, the JDHS Video Club is here today recording this program for the family. If you know of others who were unable to join us, they can view the memorial service at jdhsvideo.org. A link will be available 24 hours after we conclude. Finally, for those of you who are wondering about my obvious lack of blue, I tried. I really did try. It turns out that I own a plethora of Crimson Bear red and black. You laugh, but it is true. It is with Julie's blessing that I am wearing JDHS's school colors today, although I will tell you, I painted my toenails blue, special. My role today, per Dale's request, is one of facilitator or MC. You will hear a lot from me throughout the program. Please bear with me as I try to honor Dale's wishes and balance my own emotions in the process. I am a better educator, a better wife and mother, and a better friend because of Dale, and I feel so blessed to have known him. Our first speakers today are Mike and Jan Geffro. Mike and Dale worked together in Juneau and became each other's family. Mike was also the best man in Dale and Julie's wedding.
Good afternoon.
This was written by Mike, so some of it is going to be a little odd to hear since I'm reading it. Dale Eugene Staley, the doctor. I first met Dale when I was hired to run Schweitzer Creek Mobile Homes in 1977. Dale was already on the staff. Some of you longtime Juneauites may remember the goofy telephone ads we used to run. Goofy maybe, but they were very effective. Okay.
Although Dale was my dear friend for almost 40 years, I really didn't know too much about him. He was not one to talk much about himself. In fact, if you asked him a personal question, the answer was often vague, ambiguous, or raised even more questions. For a while, I thought it was a game, that he liked being the silent type, an enigma, a puzzle for which only he knew the solution. I later realized all right.
Dale was just a very humble and private man. I do know that he grew up in Frankfort, Indiana. After completing grade and high school there, he went to Pittsburgh State University in Pittsburgh, Kansas, where he earned an undergraduate degree and a master's degree. From there, he studied at Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas, where he earned his PhD in education, hence the doctor. I often told him that PhD meant he was piled higher and deeper. Doctor was the smartest person I ever met. It was almost a year after I met him, and quite by accident, that I found out he was co-owner with his father and stepmother of an auto parts store back home. Come to find out, it was a unique situation. Most people set up a business for their own livelihood, and maybe as something to pass on to their children when they retire. This was just the opposite. Dale was helping to build a business so that when sold, would ensure his father and his stepmother would have something in retirement. Dale was sending them quarterly, sometimes monthly checks to make sure the store stayed open. Dale arrived in Juneau in an old Volkswagen Beetle, which he affectionately called the Roach. It was a dusty yellow color with some rust and a few small dents. One winter night, the Roach had a tangle with the telephone pole downtown. I never did get the complete story on that. The next day, he asked Mike if he could bring it out to our heated garage to repair some minor damages. Mike said, sure, bring it out to the house. Dale showed up, and the Roach was in pieces. Minor damage? I don't think so. I don't remember how the car got there, but I know it wasn't drivable. The front end was off. The passenger front fender was bent back behind the door. The door jamb was bent like a sideways V, with the door sprung and held on by only one of the hinges. Well, after 2 weeks of measuring, wrenching, torching, hammering, welding, and air compressing, the repairs were finished, and with not any pieces left over. The Dale drove then, I think, the Roach for a couple more years. Okay.
Dale was a man of many interests. He was a pilot, baker, scuba diver, school board member, nature lover, skier, race car mechanic, drag racer, legislative aide, teacher, landlord, home remodeler, outdoorsman, school administrator, and a husband and father. He loved all things automotive, mechanical, scientific, and high-tech. You know, this would be easier if I put my glasses on. Oh. He was the first person I know to buy a personal computer, and of course, that Osborne still works. Dale could fix anything. I know because he fixed everything I broke. While he was in high school and college, Dale was an avid fan of all types of auto racing, especially drag racing. While in high school and college, he helped build and drive race cars. The doctor often claimed the most important tool in his toolbox was duct tape. He called it 200-mile-an-hour tape. He'd say anything could stay together up to 200 miles an hour with duct tape. Dale was also active in community organizations like the Rotary and the Juneau Dipsticks Car Club. Dale was the adventurous type. You could tell by the number of activities in which he participated. He was really on the cutting edge when it came to eating. On nice fall days, we'd comb the beaches at North Douglas or at DuPont, pulling off what he called incredible edibles from the rocks. We'd get mussels, Chinaman's hats, chitons, limpets, etc., sit down and eat them raw. It's amazing we never got sick. One day we found a patch of ripe salmon berries out by Eagle River. After eating a few, I looked at Dale and asked him, why are some of them so bitter? He looked inside one and there was a small slug. That was the end of the berries for me, but he proceeded to keep on eating. even though there was a slug in almost every one of them. When asked about it, he explained, that's just a little bit more protein. Janice is an excellent cook, and when we lived here, she went through a new recipe phase. Dale was invited over every time she experimented with a new dish, saying that Dale would always be willing to try something new, which is true. He'd eat just about anything. She also went through a low-fat, low-sugar, no-taste diet dessert phase. God, these were awful, but Dale ate them anyway. I'm not going to describe them here because I don't want to scare the children present. He was always the willing and thankful guinea pig. Dale visited us often in Atlanta, usually during the summertime. He was always up to go to an Atlanta Braves baseball game. Other than car racing, I really don't know that Dale was a sports fan. I doubt if he knew the difference between the batter's box and the coach's box. But what he did know was the exact location of the hot dog, beer, and bald peanut vendors. For y'all that don't know what a bald peanut is, you would call it a boiled peanut. Down south, they're sold along the roadside in every highway and country lane in Georgia. You either love them or you hate them. They were edible. Dale loved them. I think that the doctor had an eating motto. It would be, if I don't have to chase it too far, I'll eat it. He would give Andrew Zimmern a run for his money.
When Mike and I were living in Atlanta, Dale called and said he was coming to visit the following week with a friend. Mike asked me for the guy's name. I told him Dale's companion was not a guy, but a girl. Mike was stunned. He had talked with Dale less than 2 weeks before, and there was no mention of a girl, and now he was traveling with her. All I knew was that her name was Julie, and she was from Australia. Now, Dale had never introduced us to a girlfriend before, so I had an inkling that she was someone quite special. For a week, we wondered about this international woman of mystery. Who could she be? Waiting for Julie and Dale at the airport, in the back of my mind, I had a thought that this might be a little hoax, because Dale did have an impish side. To our pleasure, however, we were introduced to a very charming, poised, and beautiful woman. I really don't remember too much about those few days, but what I do remember is that Mike grilled some of Dale's favorite Tennessee-style chicken. We called it sticky gooey chicken, and Julie kept calling it ooey gooey chicken. We both thought Julie was terrific, except Mike couldn't understand half of what she said, and sometimes he still has problems. After they left, I told Mike that Julie was probably the one, and I was right. A year later, we were on the plane headed for Juneau and Dale and Julie's wedding.
In 1989, George Herbert Walker Bush gave his acceptance speech after winning his party's nomination for president. In that speech and many thereafter, he used several slogans or several phrases that would become campaign slogans. There was the infamous, "Read my lips, no new taxes." He also talked about 1,000 points of light.
Okay. He was talking about thousands of ethnic, religious, social, charitable, and service organizations that, quote, spread like shining stars in a broad and peaceful sky, end quote. I think that he was really talking about the people that make up those organizations. These were the people who didn't shy away from the hard jobs. These were people who solved problems, were resourceful, unselfish, the doers, not the talkers, people who could listen to opinions different from their own and try to find the common ground. These 1,000 points of light through the limelight, doing their best work in the background, people who care deeply about their neighbor, city, state, and country. People who could always be counted on to pitch in and give a helping hand. Those who live by the law and work to right a wrong. Mr. Bush said these 1,000 points of light make our nation, quote, kinder and gentler, end quote. Dale Staley was truly one of those 1,000 points of light. He was certainly kinder and gentler. We're meeting here today in the high school he served for many years. Most of the students he interacted with never saw the Dale Staley that we knew. At school, Dale was the strict enforcer of the school's rules and regulations. All business, he had to be. It could be said that his was a world of no exceptions, no leniency, and zero tolerance. After all, he had to live by the rules and regulations too. He couldn't set new precedents. He had to deal with disciplinary issues, truancy, family problems, dependency issues, and others. If you broke the rules, a trip to Mr. Staley's office was not a pleasant task. Dale once told me that even though he was the campus watchdog, he cared for each and every student and always tried to be fair and compassionate. I always thought that Dale had one of the toughest jobs in the school district. We're here today to tell all those students that there was another Mr. Staley. He was an exceptional and fun-loving guy who loved spontaneity and surprises, and a man whose eyes twinkled when he laughed.
During our lifetimes, we make many wishes. Most of them are trivial and of little consequence. If we had another wish that could come true, it would be to spend just one more day with the doctor. It wouldn't have to be a special day, just any old day, say in 1978. It could be raining, but hopefully not too windy. Janice and I would load up the boat, haul it out to Ock Bay, and launch it. Dale would meet us there, right driving up in the Roach. He'd come walking down the dock with his permed curly hair bouncing to the rhythm of his steps. In one hand would be his fishing pole and his version of a tackle box, and in the other, a thermos of super sweet black coffee and a bag of Foodland maple bars. His version of a tackle box was a ground grocery bag stuffed with his stuff, inside a Territorial Sportsman salmon derby promotional plastic bag with a drawstring to keep the whole outfit dry. We would go fishing, drop a few crab pots. After several hours, Janice and I would have caught a fish or two, but the doctor would be skunked. Dale rarely caught a fish. In fact, I can only remember one coho during a 2-day Labor Day outing. It wasn't that he didn't try. He was diligent in checking his bait. He'd switch from herring to a hoochie, vary the weight, use a flasher, then take it off, go closer to shore, then out from shore. He did everything a good fisherman should do. Actually, the problem was not the fisherman, it was the pole. Dale had this ugly green pole covered with saltwater corrosion, and the line looked like it was over 20 years old. I think Henry David Thoreau once owned this pole. It had all the luck fished out of it years ago. We used to fish a lot with Don Plummer and Tim Cunningham. After several trips out, I think it was Tim, who was about 12 years old at the time, finally dubbed this pole the pole that sucks. That pole had such a bad reputation and so much bad juju that Don didn't want his pole fishing on the same side of the boat as his. After fishing most of the day, we'd return home. I would grill some salmon with just a little barbecue sauce on it so it would caramelize on the outside. Janice would make his favorite Caesar. Go ahead and finish that.
I would make his favorite Caesar salad, and he would warm up the dinner rolls that he had baked the night before. We'd start things off with a crab cocktail and an ice-cold double vodka martini with 3 olives. It would be the perfect ending to a perfect day. Unfortunately, as with most wishes, this one will not come true. Dale relished his role of husband and father. Becoming a family man is when Dale really blossomed. He loved Julie and the boys so very much. He had a special fondness for doing projects with Matthew and Timothy, from building stuff and making weekend pancake breakfasts to fishing and skiing. We often told Julie that she was really raising 3 boys. Today is a day to celebrate Dale's life and also a day of reflection and appreciation. Let's appreciate the fact that we knew him. Reflect on how much Dale meant to all of us. Although Dale has left us, he will always be loved in our hearts and cherished in our memories.
The next speaker that we'll invite to share is Dale's second cousin, Robert Staley. He is joining us from Dale's state of Indiana to share insights from Dale's early life.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today to celebrate my cousin Dale's life. It's an honor and a privilege to speak about Dale's younger years at this celebration of life occasion. My name is Robert Staley. Dale and I are second cousins. However, Dale was more like an uncle to me growing up. So I have a few stories that I'd like to tell from family members about a man that I looked up to and had a huge impression on my life. Dale was born in 1947 in Frankfort, Indiana, and was an only child to Fred and Donna Staley. Frankfort at the time was a blue-collar railroad town an hour north of Indianapolis in central Indiana. Dale was fortunate that he had several cousins that were close in age that also lived in town and that he could run around with and grow up with. Two of Dale's closest friends was my uncle Harold and my dad Wayne. My dad was a couple years younger than Dale, and he was kind of the tag-along little brother to Dale and Harold. As kids, Dale and his cousins seemed as if they were straight out of a Little Rascals movie. The cousins enjoyed playing outside, building wooden go-karts out of boxes and wood, playing stickball, roller skating, swimming together, and basically everything that typical adventurous kids did growing up in the 50s and 60s. Dale's nickname growing up was Butchie. The story goes that his Uncle Bobby, my grandfather, gave him the nickname because of a botched haircut Dale's mom had given him. I didn't know that until a couple of days ago. Dale's dad, my Uncle Fred, was a mechanic and could fix about anything. One day, Dale and one of his cousins, Grace, were playing on his tree swing and were discussing whose dad was better than the other. I think we've all had that discussion with a friend one time or two. Dale decided he was going to one-up his cousin and finish the discussion, and so he went and got his hatchet and chopped the swing's wooden seat in two. Grace was shocked and asked why he did it, and Dale simply said, "Well, my dad can fix anything." As that story can attest, Dale had a great respect for his parents, and he had a great respect for the whooping he received from his dad when he found out what he had done. When the cousins were older, they'd hang out on the courthouse square, where they'd park their cars and check out the girls. The common practice was to get out your handkerchief and buff and shine the side of the car facing the street so it looked nice and clean to attract the girls. In high school, Dale was very active in a number of activities, including drama club, band, school plays, choir, Spanish club, and future teachers club, to name a few. Dale and I share the fact that we're Frankfort High School alumnus with the dubious honor of being called Frankfort Hot Dogs. I recently read an article ranking the worst high school mascots in the U.S., and the Frankfort Hot Dogs made the top 20. Think of a ferocious-looking dachshund baring its teeth and growling, and you get the picture. I couldn't even go to college, and people knew that. In 1964, when Dale was 17, he and Harold were riding on Harold's new motorcycle when they were hit by a car that did not stop at an intersection. It was a tragic event for the Staleys, as Harold lost his life that day, and miraculously, Dale survived. Several family members have told me that even after losing his cousin and his best friend, Dale was the stabilizing presence for my grandparents and my dad as they grieved the loss of Harold. Tragedy again struck Dale in 1966 as his mom, Donna, lost a fight with cancer. Once again, Dale seemed to know the right thing to say and do for his dad and for his entire family. In the late 1960s, early 1970s, Dale would go on to college, eventually obtaining his PhD from Kansas State. One of my first memories of Dale was in 1974. I was playing in the front yard of our house in Frankfort when this pink, purple, and white VW Bug with a giant octopus painted on it pulled up in front of my house. The car looked like it was straight out of my Hot Wheels collection. Dale gets out of the car sporting an afro, a David Cassidy butterfly-collared dress shirt, cut-off blue jean shorts, and tennis shoes with no socks. He comes up to me, and after telling me who he was and saying hi to my dad, asked me if I wanted to go for a ride in Doc Ock and swing by Georgie Porgy's Drive-In for coney dogs, onion rings, and root beer. For a 5-year-old, that was a pretty cool impression. After college, Dale moved to Alaska, yet he seemed to always make it back to Indiana a couple of times every year to see family, and in particular to help out his dad at the Staley Auto Parts store. Back in the 70s and 80s, Alaska was essentially a foreign country to those of us in the Midwest, and to have a relative come visit from Alaska was a thing to brag about to my buddies growing up. I'd listened to Dale tell stories of bears walking down the street in front of his trailer, scuba diving for crab, whale watching, and having a glacier right down the street. It just mesmerized me. It was these stories which would eventually have me consider attending Sheldon Jackson College in Sitka, and which eventually led me to work for the National Marine Fisheries Service in Dutch Harbor. Dale always had a love for cars and did drag racing back in the day with several famous drivers. Each year, one of his trips back to Indiana revolved around attending the U.S. Nationals at Indianapolis Raceway Park during Labor Day. The U.S. Nationals are the Indy 500 at drag racing and take place over a span of several days. On several occasions, he would take me to the drags, complete with pit passes. Once again, I thought Dale was the coolest guy on the planet, as he would walk by the Top Fuel and funny cars, and Dale would strike up conversation with the likes of Kenny Bernstein, Mike Dunn, Raymond Beadle, just to name a few. The first time Dale took me to the Nationals, he bought me a white t-shirt, and he asked me where I wanted to sit. So of course, as a young guy, I wanted to sit near the start line where they did burnouts. So we found the perfect seats right across from the starting line with a nice breeze hitting us right in the face as it was a hot September day in Indiana. So Dale looked at me and he asked me one more time, "Do you really want to sit here?" And I was like, "Yes." So we're sitting there, and after a while, I look down and my white brand new t-shirt is now black. It's from all the rubber flying in the air from all the burnouts. Dale looked over at me and said, "So are we going to sit here tomorrow?" That was kind of Dale's way of teaching me growing up. He always let me make decisions, but he always kind of directed you to the right decision eventually. So life lesson, don't sit downwind from the burnouts. I can still see the little smirk on his face. Dale had a God-given ability of teaching and guidance, as is evidenced by his life work and education. I cherish the talks Dale had with me when I was trying to decide if college was for me, and if so, what college to attend. It's great to look out and see all of Dale's family, friends, coworkers, and acquaintances here today. Simply take a moment and look around, and you can see what kind of a man Dale was and how many lives he touched in this community. Each one of us here, Dale touched in some fashion. Dale was a special man that God put on this earth to touch an untold number of people through his gifts and talents. He was my role model and mentor, and someone I looked up to from an early age. We'll all continue to grieve, as it's only natural that we would do so when we lose someone we treasure so much. But the great thing about today is we can also celebrate a great man and all the great work he did. I cannot wait to see Dale again in heaven. Hopefully he'll pull up in Doc Ock and we can enjoy a hot dog and a root beer again.
I'm really hopeful that there's a picture of this car we keep hearing about. The next person that we're going to invite to join us is Sue Douglas. Sue has known Dale since she arrived in Juneau in 1977. They quickly became friends, sharing many experiences of life in early Juneau. I know that she has also been a tremendous resource to the family as they've navigated these past few months.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here to speak about Dale. I thank you, Julie, for allowing it. My name's Sue Plummer Douglas. I'm an old friend of Dale's, as in, yeah, I'm getting really old. And old in that our friendship goes clear back to 1977. Friendship occurs for many reasons and comes in many forms. I'm proud to claim being part of a unique group of friends that included Dale from the very beginning, and later on morphed into being called Dr. Dale's Rat Pack. My family and I moved to Juneau in January '77, fresh off the ferry in a blinding snowstorm when the dock was still downtown. Jan and Mike Geffro, who you heard in the beginning, arrived about the same time. All of us came from Silverton, Oregon, because we were transferred by the telephone company there to work for Juneau Telephone Company here. Mike went to work for, I've got to go back. All of us came from Silverton because Jan, my late husband Don Plummer, and I were transferred by the telephone company. That's how we got here. But Mike went to work for Schweitzer Creek Mobile Home after we all arrived, where he immediately met Dale and dubbed him Dr. Dale. And then about a year later, another Oregon telephone company friend, Pam Wolcott, arrived, transferring to Juneau from Silverton as well. And what did she do? She married a local telephone guy, Al Bixby. The point is, all of us have been wonderful friends ever since then. We've been very blessed with a 37-year friendship. So friendship is when a bunch of people move to Juneau, make lives without any relatives nearby, feel like orphans, and we create a new family. That's what we did, and Dale was with us from the very beginning. We've had many wonderful and warm times together. Mike and Jan told you about that. Fishing trips, great meals that included Dale's home-baked rolls or home-baked bread. Lots of fresh halibut and salmon. Probably too many martinis, and Dale did indeed like 3 olives best. We were a familial rat pack. Friendship is when you can do this frequently, spontaneously, with your children, and without having to clean the house when we all got together. Friendship is when Bachelor Dale felt comfortable enough to not only be an active part of this rat pack family, but after Jan and Mike would go to bed, he'd just stay sleeping in the chair in the living room, then quietly get up, turn out the lights, lock the doors, and drive away in the roach. Friendship consists of memorable stories shared, both good and bad. Many of the Rat Pack stories have to do with Dale's remarkable ingenuity. He was a handy, clever friend to have around. One winter, the above-ground water line pipe leading to the Schweitzer Creek Mobile Home Park office froze, and Dale was going to thaw it out with a blowtorch that turned out to be broken. So his solution was to turn a spray can of bright orange paint, you know, the really volatile stuff, into a blowtorch. Well, it worked brilliantly, of course, but the water line was forever after bright orange. Friendship is when many years ago, two crazy guys like Mike Geffro and Don Plummer agree with Dale's creative idea to go to shore to find a large fir bough to replace the oar they broke while in a skiff on Lake Kathleen. After some bushwhacking in the woods, Dale found the perfect oar-sized bough, and three friends rowed safely back to the Forest Service cabin where Jan and I were waiting patiently, and probably honestly not too patiently. Some of you may remember the early days of KJNO TV, about 1978-79. Some of you probably are young enough you wouldn't remember that. When the first local commercials were aired in Juneau, Switzer Creek Mobile Home sales personnel created and acted in their own TV advertisements. Yes, it was Mike and the doctor, dressed as a couple of jolly green giant niblets, green tights and all, in absolutely ridiculously silly skits aimed to get the viewer to buy a new mobile home. One commercial actually showed Dale sitting on Santa's knee and leaving a wet spot on poor Santa's lap. Another where they were nicely dressed in suits, dining in a very fine restaurant, and then Dale proceeds to pick up the tablecloth and tuck it into under his chin for his napkin. So after a number of these outrageous productions, they became local celebrities, to the point that when they were out in a real restaurant, people would be sending over free drinks to thank them for the fabulous commercials that they all just loved. Juneau was pretty hard up then, I think. We remember them. So friendship is when, over the years, as the Rat Pack did grow up a little, and we raised our children and pursued our careers, we really, truly never lost touch, in spite of going off in different directions and to different places. In 1990, the Rat Pack gained a wonderful new friend when Dale and Julie married. Jan and Mike came back to Juneau for the wedding. The Bixby's daughter, Sarah, was a flower girl, and we were all there to share in their wedded bliss, and later the births of two fine sons. Friendship is when Al Bixby visited Dr. Dale during the last week of his life. Dale asked his son Matthew to get a little green box from a particular shelf in the garage. He gave it to Al and said, "I noticed you had a rivet missing from your canvas on your boat when we went out last summer, and I intended to fix it for you. Well, here's the box. You might as well fix it." Friendship after all these years continues within the Rat Pack. Hopefully we did our best to support our friend Dr. Dale during his illness and his family's greatest times of need. But there are many others out there too, including good people like Paula Casperson, who suddenly late one afternoon called her husband from the Juneau airport and said, "Honey, I sure hope you can pick up the kids tonight because I'm getting on an airplane. I need to go down to see Dale and Julie." That's friendship, Paula, thank you. Friendship is Julie's brother Ian and her best friend Janine, coming all the way from Australia to support and care for Dale and the family. Ian was here for over 7 weeks, Janine for about 3. All of us who love Dr. Dale and the family will be forever grateful for their generosity of heart, time, and travel expenditure. Finally, let me tell you about the finest act of friendship I've ever seen. You all know that true love is really a form of friendship. And no greater love was ever shown Dale than by his wife and 2 sons during his final days. They were by his side, holding his hand, talking to him, befriending him with love every minute until he had to leave them. Julie and Matt and Tim, you were fabulous. I can't tell you how proud I am of you. I know I've told you, but I'm telling you again now. Thank you for all that you did for Dale. So I'd like to close by simply speaking for my children, Tim and Carrie, who grew up with Dr. Dale, my husband, Paul Douglas, along with all of Dr. Dale's Rat Pack. We'll always keep Julie, Matthew, Timothy under our wings and Dale in our hearts, as I know many of you with us here today will do the same. Thank you so much.
I told Julie at the house about a week ago that I knew that I know the moment when Dale and I moved from being colleagues to being friends. We were doing a sweep of the halls, asking students to get to class on time, and then we met on the second floor hallway. And he said, "Hey, are those new pants?" And I paused, and I looked, and I said, "Yes. Thank you for noticing." And he said, "They're terribly unflattering. You should never wear those again." And I probably didn't, because if they were so bad that he noticed, they likely needed to go. The next people to join us on the stage are Peter Freer and Pete Caron. They worked with Dale in Senator Jim Duncan's office, sharing many late nights. They no doubt have many stories to share from Dale's time with the legislature.
By mutual consent, I guess I'll go first here. My name is Peter Freer. I had the pleasure of working with Dale back in the early 1980s on Representative Jim Duncan's staff, and I'm proud to say that we sorted a friendship that lasted all these years. But I'm not here to give my comments today, but those of former Representative and Senator Jim Duncan. Dale worked for Jim for close to 20 years, if not 20 years, and they developed a close relationship, as Jim's comments will reveal to you. So from Senator Duncan. I regret that previous commitments prevent me from being here today with Julie, family, and friends to celebrate Dale's life and the everlasting and fond memories of a great husband, father, and friend. I am so very fortunate that I had the pleasure and opportunity to know Dale for nearly 40 years, as a work colleague for over 20 of those years, but most importantly as a true friend for the entirety of that time. As many of you know, Dale worked with me for many years as my chief of staff during my service in the state legislature representing Juneau. When you work closely together as we did for all those years, you get to know each other very well. And I got to know Dale as an individual who was fully committed to going the extra mile to get the job done. I could always count on him to have sound advice and be there to support me in any way possible. Even though our lives went different directions in the last 15 years and we seldom saw each other, I thought of Dale often. For example, every year when the Indy 500 was being run, I would remember Dale and our conversations about the race. Dale grew up in that neighborhood, and at least in the years he worked for me, he was a true fan, and his enthusiasm got me to be one also. Each time I would see pictures of years gone by and someone dressed in a checkered three-piece suit, I would remember Dale. He would always dress the part in the early years, and he dressed stylishly and well. Actually, today we may wonder why anyone would wear those types of clothes, but Dale wore them well. And then on May 4th of each year, I would think of Dale and us celebrating our birthdays together, most likely after some late-night committee meeting in the legislature. Yes, Dale and I both had May 4th birthdays, both Taurus. Hard to imagine how two guys born under the sign of the bull with typical Taurus traits of bullheadedness and stubbornness could work together for over 20 years, get something done and remain good friends, but we did. And I give Dale the lion's share of the credit for that, as he was always willing to let me vent, but then when appropriate, never hesitate to tell me when it was time to knock off. Yes, Dale could be bullheaded and stubborn, but more importantly, he personified the more positive traits of a Taurus, that of wanting to get things done, and done right and being practical and reliable. That is what I remember most about Dale, his commitment to getting the job done and being someone I could always count on to be there. I will never forget the support he gave me over the years. If I had any success, a lot of it could be directly attributed to the work Dale did and the advice he gave me throughout the years. Julie, I know that Dale had a deep love for you and the boys. I recall when he first met you and you became a couple, he was beaming. It was clear that Dale had found his true love and was committed to making a strong and stable life for you and for your boys. I do know how difficult this has been for you, but take comfort in knowing that Dale was respected and loved by many, and that his memory and his many accomplishments will long endure. Again, I regret that I can't be with you today to celebrate and remember Dale. Rest well, my friend. You will be missed and long remembered. With great affection, Jim Duncan.
They say it's hard to find a good man. It got harder with Dale's passing, no doubt. How do I know he was a good man? I could keep us here most of the day explaining how I know, but I'll share some highlights and I'll keep it at that. I first got to know Dale in association with our work with Senator Jim Duncan. I initially worked on one of the senator's campaigns and then on his legislative staff with Dale, Roxanne, and Debbie. I worked on the staff for 3 years. And I size up people, especially coworkers, on the basis of whether I would want to be in a foxhole with them. Maybe that's from my Army experience. Dale was someone you would not mind sharing a foxhole with, I'll tell you that. A legislative session in that state capitol building, I'm here to tell you, is one great big foxhole. And it was good to be serving with the likes of Dale. One of my jobs was to spew out press releases for the senator, which meant I had to have a handle on all of his legislation and his initiatives. And there were a couple that come to mind that were Dale's responsibilities and really impressed me. One was the legislation giving teachers right to strike. After lots of hard work and lots of perseverance, the measure cleared the legislature only to be immediately vetoed by Governor Hickel. It was a memorable day when that veto was overridden by a mere single vote. Dale's role in that was significant. Senator Duncan was on the cutting edge of health care reform legislation that Dale carried and was responsible for. We worked on that detailed and convoluted issue the whole time I was there. And I don't mind saying, a lot of the times, I didn't know what they were doing. But I could always go to Dale to get an explanation and gain insight into what was going on and get an explanation as to why we were doing it. His attention to detail and the ability to respond quickly to changing circumstances were truly impressive. I had covered the legislative session in 1984 for an Anchorage television station. And covering a session as a reporter and working as an aide are entirely two different things. You find out what really goes on as an aide. Dale was always helpful, willing to answer my questions, and share his knowledge with me. And my time serving as a legislative aide made me a better reporter later on. But we were far more than co-workers. We became good friends. And I was proud to be Dale's friend. I was proud when he married Julie, and I was proud of how he and Julie were able to raise two fine sons, and he leaves two good men in his wake, no doubt. I was proud of his election to the school board and his service to the community. And I'm proud and honored to be here today to tell you why I thought Dale Staley was a good man. You know, Dale struck me as one of those guys who could have walked right off the screen of one of those old cowboy movies. You know the ones, the strong, silent types, slow to rile, but when they did, look out. Now, he would have been wearing one of them big white hats, marking him as a good guy, like the good man he was. And we'll miss Dale. And I'll look forward to resuming our friendship later on.
The next series of speakers are from Dale's time serving the Juneau School District. Instead of introducing those of you listed in the program individually, I would ask that you come up in the order that you're listed to share your memories that help encapsulate his time in Juneau schools.
Hello, I'm Deb Morse, and I had the pleasure of knowing and working with Dale Staley over the last 15 years. My first year as Juneau Douglas High School principal, Dale moved over from district office as one of the 3 assistant principals here at JD, a JD High School with an enrollment of over 1,800 students. One of the last few years, the first 4 years that I worked with Dale, we had the largest student body that they had ever had here at Juneau Douglas High School and will ever have. A high school assistant principal is one of the most difficult and thankless positions in a school district. It's almost impossible to get ahead of all of the stacks of discipline write-ups, the work orders, the phone calls that needed to be returned, and add to this, at that time, the oh-so-easy system of email that could be sent. That added a whole nother layer to the pile of things to get through each day. Dale served the students and the staff for 13 years before leaving this high school. I know how much it meant for him working here, how much it meant to him working here. He cared about the students, he cared about the staff, and the wide range of courses that we could offer in such a comprehensive high school. Dale was especially instrumental in keeping a strong vocational educational program here at JD High. The planning for the JD High renovation was in full swing, and it would have been so easy to have taken the large metal shop and the wood shop and turned it into several regular classrooms. But Dale was in the right place at the right time with the right training and the right connections with UAS and also with the district school board members to not let that happen. During the 4 years that I worked here with Dale, we were not only able to keep the auto and the woods programs going, but we were able to open the metal shop back up and start that program. I liked working with Dale. I could always trust his instincts and his advice. Dale would be one of the first staff in the building every morning, and he would be one of the last to leave every day. And after an exceptionally hard day here, that probably included some sort of strange student discipline incident, and we had some notable ones while working together, I could always count on Dale to put some interesting spin on the incident. Something along the lines of, well, at least they didn't, or they could have, and he would have me laughing at the end of the day. And I loved Dale's laugh. If you knew Dale, you knew his laugh. It was more of a chuckle. And along with that laugh, his smile. Some days, after everyone had left the school, Matthew and Timothy would show up and be sitting in Dale's office. And I loved to go in there and talk to those boys. Matthew was so articulate and serious and well-mannered, and Timothy was all eyes and a ball of energy, working really hard just to keep it all in. One topic that they loved to talk about was watching a show called Monster Garage. You probably remember it. And they loved watching it with their dad. And I would get them talking, and Matthew would start describing that week's monster transformation dilemma. And then Timothy would start interjecting those extra special challenges that were going on in the episode. And Dale would be sitting at his desk, chuckling. That's who Dale Staley was to me. He was a great dad. He loved his family. He was a hard worker who cared deeply for this school. And he was a good friend that I could always count on. When I received the phone call informing me that Dale had passed, I texted my son Doug because I wanted to let him know what was going on. We'd been talking about it for days. And his responding text said it all. He's one of the good guys. In my head, I can just imagine Dale sitting somewhere chuckling. Thank you, Julie, and Matthew, and Tim for sharing Dale with us.
My name's Andy Bullock. I teach metal shop here at JDHS. Since Dale's passing, many conversations and events have been swirling around in my mind. I'm going to take the next few minutes to share a few that I feel most accurately portray the kind of man he was and what he meant to me and many other teachers in this district. I think it's appropriate that his service is being held at JDHS. I remember a visit with Dale in which he retold an event he was a part of in a remote community. A community leader had passed, and the people of the community wanted the service at the high school. An overzealous administrator who had recently moved to the village did not feel it acceptable for such an event to take place at a school. Dale explained to her that in Alaska, a school is the heart of a community and an important, sacred place for such an event to take place. It makes me extremely happy that Dale's service is being held at JDHS because Dale loved this place and poured his heart into it. Pam Tippett and I were visiting immediately after Dale's passing and came to the conclusion that family, school, dipsticks, and Rotary kind of alloyed themselves together to comprise and shape Dale's life. I love remembering Dale and his son Matthew pushing that big cart around the halls looking for laptop computers that freshmen forgot to turn in. I remember Dale at numerous car shows through the years with his entire family participating, even Julie, even though it was on Mother's Day. It was through school that I got to know Dale and his family, and I felt a great care for me that eclipsed what a typical boss would feel for a 9-to-5 employee. My first year teaching, one day before Christmas break, Dale came down to the shop and asked me what I was doing for Christmas. I stammered a little bit because I had no plans, and then he informed me that I was to be to the house at 5 on Christmas Eve and spend it with his family. It was a great evening and gave me the family atmosphere that I had left behind. The highlight of the evening was when about 10:30 a frantic call came in from Gary Lanehart, who had hid his family's Christmas presents in his classroom and could not access them because the key card was offline. We all had a good laugh, and then Dale hopped in the minivan to rescue the Lanehart family Christmas party. By definition, Dale's job involved working with the most difficult students and their parents. Additionally, Dale worked with teachers and other administrators who would oftentimes passionately cling to ideas that were not always aligned with his own in this big, slow-moving bureaucracy. I find it amazing and inspirational to remember how Dale could work with differing ideals, difficult parents, and demanding teachers while maintaining a sense of humor and helping out individual kids. I remember a couple of girls having some screwdrivers in the underground garage before school was to start. This was at 7:30 back then. Upon rehashing the event with Dale, I wondered with a tone of self-righteousness how any kid could ever do such a thing and let out a sigh. Dale kind of cocked his head and grinned and told me they were just starting cocktail hour a little bit early, and then he went into his office to deal with them. I remember, too, another time I was traveling to Florida with 8 students to build Habitat for Humanity houses over our spring break. 3 of the 8 students were from severely economically disadvantaged families. One day prior to us leaving on the trip, Dale came down to the shop with an envelope of cash he had put together and mentioned the 3 students by name and told me to make sure they had a good time in Florida. Dale was also a master at sitting through meetings and at least pretending not to be bored. I wonder how many meetings he sat in through the years. A ton. I remember after one particularly painful meeting telling Dale about my feelings towards them without mincing any words. What he told me has stayed with me and been a big help. Most of a meeting could be potentially void, he said, but oftentimes there's about 5 minutes, sometimes at the end of it, when something productive and good comes out of it. I have to agree with Dale, and it seems oftentimes in life a person can work, and then in the last 5 minutes or so it all comes together and production happens. Finally, my favorite story of all is when I was in Las Vegas with Dale at a conference. The last evening of the 3-day event was left open to partake in the offerings of Vegas. Dale and I went out to eat at the Cheesecake Factory under the Bellagio, and with great love and pride, he told me story after story of how exceptional his 2 boys were. Dale loved his family a great deal and was extremely proud of Julie, Timothy, and Matthew. And I want you guys to know that your dad and your husband helped a lot of people out, don't have a voice, underprivileged kids, and he did a lot of good for this community. So thank you.
So Mr. Staley was vice principal at my high school years here at JDHS. He liked to appear as kind of a hard ass and keep the disciplinary role, but if you got the chance to know him a little bit more, you would see that he was a kind soul and so much more than that. Mr. Staley took his job very seriously, and he did it well. You could tell that he truly cared about the students and was not just there for a job. As a student, I had a few run-ins with him, more than once, being forced to turn my Alaskan Amber sweatshirt inside out. And there were frequent tardies as well, as I was not the most punctual student at my time here at JDHS. One of my memories that I have with Dr. Staley, I came in the door, the first bell had already rung, and he was standing at the end of the hall with his arms crossed and had a smirk on his face, and he said, "You better run," because at that time, they were just enforcing the new detention rule. So if you were late for class, you got detention. So somehow I always managed to get to class. As an adult, I've had the opportunity to see Mr. Staley in another light, as a father, which over the last several years has given me more respect for the man that he was, and I feel privileged to have the chance to have had him in my life.
I'm going to add on to Ashley's story a little bit of Mr. Staley from the student's point of view, and share a story that my son Dylan came home and shared with me one day after school. Being that Las Vegas was brought up earlier, he had a shirt from Las Vegas that was from Dick's Last Resort. This shirt says, "They have Hooters, we have Dick's." Mr. Staley says, "Dylan, you need to take your shirt off." Dylan says, "Mr. Staley, why?" He says, "You need to take your shirt off." Dylan says, "I don't understand why, it's a restaurant." And he looked at Dylan with a smirk and he said, "Don't wear it to school again." So you can see that he did need to enforce his rules, but he did have a sense of humor as well, and we really appreciate that. One of my favorite memories of Mr. Staley is at the basketball games. The cheer coaches, we sit there and watch all of the goings on as the game is happening, and the kids like to throw up their claws for the baskets, for the free throws. So everybody in the crowd has their claws up. Carlene and I look around, and we started watching for Mr. Staley more, because he would be up there with his claws up, and they would be twitching like crazy as he's waiting for that basket to be made. And that became our game entertainment, was watching for Mr. Staley's paws. It was a privilege to know him, and you guys have an amazing family. I'm really, really proud to know you guys. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Moore, and I'm here representing my family who are traveling in Texas. Our two daughters, Shania and Arya, are in university there and are working during the summer, and so they wanted me to pass along their condolences to the family and to read just a few remarks. Mr. Staley was not just an assistant principal to my wife and I. He was a friend. And even before our daughters were old enough to attend JDHS, he had already made fast friends with them too, as they were up here with us. My wife is a teacher here also, and he welcomed us into the JDHS and Juneau community. And as our kids got to, come up after school, he made fast friends with them. So he had, even before they were students here. When days became tough and stressful, my wife, Michelle, would march into Dale's office, sit down and say, "Mr. Staley, I really need to laugh." And he always would stop whatever he was doing, no matter what kind of day he was having, and tell her some funny stories about his own life or family, and take the time to laugh with her and to help the day seem just a little bit better. Every day he had a smile for all of us and our girls as they would, before students and as they were here. Always was a second father to them, and more than just a vice principal. He would always stop them as they were here, as their paths crossed during the day, check in with them and see how their day was going. This was just who he was. It wasn't that my kids were anything special. We saw him do that countless times. He didn't just see people, he saw them. And he knew what they were going through. He knew their struggles and was always there with either a kind word or a kick in the butt, whatever it took to get the job done. He took time to live in their moments and with those around him. He truly lived every moment to his fullest. He loved this school, and I think, as you've heard with many speakers, you could tell very quickly that JDHS and education and just the fact of living life was to be taken seriously because there was so much at stake. He loved this school, he loved the students and its faculty. He was a man full of grace and forgiveness. And if he had to reprimand somebody, and I have to share one little quick story. On my first year here, I made the terrible mistake of releasing my students 5 minutes before the lunch bell rang. This is my first year, so I was a little new at the thing. And within 5 minutes of that fateful decision, he was in my office and took me right in there, and I really did. I felt like I was in the principal's office. He just had the finger going, and he let me know really quickly that that was never to be done. And it was shocking because I'd never been spoken to by anybody else but by my father in that way. And it was a bit of an unprofessional thing. I thought, how dare he? But as the years have gone by, I've never forgotten that, but I've realized that that's how much he cared. 5 minutes. 5 minutes was important to the whole system, to the program, and it made me realize just, never to take anything for granted, that, 5 minutes can make the difference. And certainly with words and actions like that, he has proved it. Even though he reprimanded me, and he should have, the minute that was over, it was over. And even though I kind of carried a few scars from that, he never seemed to remember it. He never held that against me again. So, I know that he was a disciplinarian through and through, but like I said, when it was over, and it was time to move forward and get the job done. He would always help us continue with that journey, with the relationships that he was building, and he acted as if after those things were over, the hard part, moving on, and he never held it against us. As he believed in clean slates and fresh beginnings. Both of our children adored Mr. Staley, and he loved to tease and laugh with them. He'd always come to see their shows or their music concerts, even when he wasn't on duty, and often bringing his whole family. After the plays or concerts, he would always take time to find my daughters, hug them, and tell them how talented and special they were. It isn't easy being a high school student where your parent works. It's even harder when both of your parents are your teachers and authority figures. Mr. Staley knew what that was, and he reached out to our daughters in a special way, making sure both of them knew that their value and worth as students in this school. My wife and I will witness Dale doing this for many students. As I said before, our students were just one among thousands that he touched. Because of this kind and special commitment to the students of JDHS, Mr. Staley will always hold a special place in our family's life. It's easy to see the kind of man, husband, and father Dale was. Just look at his beautiful family. It's a great, wonderful measure of a man as his family turns out. They too are filled with integrity, honor, compassion, and love. They will forever be a lasting testament to the life that Dale lived. He made a lasting impression on my family, and I know, as so many are witnessed today, the lives of this community. Thank you.
I was lucky enough to work with Dale under 5 high school principals. Ryan Alsip, who is our high school principal here at JDHS from 2010 to 2013, sent along a note that he asked for me to share on his behalf. Good afternoon, everyone. Julie, Matthew, and Timothy, I am so sorry for your loss. Dale was an amazing person and touched the lives of countless people in such a positive way. Working with Dale was a wonderful experience. When I think about Dale, there are a number of stories that come to mind, and I'd like to share one of them with you. Sometime during my first week on the job, I walked into the men's bathroom and found a water valve was stuck open, and one of the toilets wouldn't stop flushing. Being new on the job, I wasn't really sure who to call, so I went into Dale's office to find out. Instead of giving me a name or a phone number, Dale reached behind his desk, got a wrench, and proceeded to go into the bathroom to fix the toilet. To this day, Dale is the only administrator I've worked with who kept a full toolbox in his office. For many of you, this story probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but to me, it provided a lot of insight into who Dale really was. Most administrators I've worked with wouldn't have attempted to fix that toilet, even if they knew how to, but not Dale. Dale was always willing to do whatever it took to ensure that our students achieved the best education that they could, whether that was fixing a toilet that was running, enforcing the school policies, and applying discipline so that students learn from their mistakes. He was a kind and compassionate person, and I will always respect him for trying to do what was best for our students, even if the students didn't realize it at the time. I learned quite a bit from Dale during my time there in Juneau. I am honored to have worked with him and proud to have considered him a friend. Ryan also.
Hello, my name is Mary Ann Manning, and I never do this, but I realized that, anytime I needed something, I went to Dale Staley. So he wrote my references. He was the one who supported me when I wanted to complain about someone. Not that I did that often, but Dale was the one who listened to me. So bear with me if my voice quivers a little. Anyway, I have known Dale for a long time. My husband and I, he's helped us a lot. When Dale worked for the school board, we talked to him. That's when our kids were little, so Dale was the one we called when we had issues. And then I also had the opportunity to work a little while with Dale in Senator Duncan's office. I was doing just a little stint there, an internship, and Dale was the chief of staff, and he was so smart and politically correct, and he just was great. And he was very supportive of me, and I didn't really know how the legislature worked. I still don't, but a few times I thought, if they had a few moms up here, we could take care of this stuff, but I didn't tell him that. But anyway, that people would write letters, all the time. We'd get letters, and of course the senator couldn't write every single one, so Dale and different staff members would write the letter knowing how the senator's views and stuff. So they would write the letter, and then Senator Duncan would read it and make any changes and then sign it, and we would send that off to the constituent. Well, Dale a few times let me write some letters, and I would stew over it like it was I doing it right, and I'd bring it home and have my husband help me. And so anyway, one time this woman was ranting on and on about something, and so I took the letter home and I wrote 2 letters. I wrote one that was what you should say and the right thing to say, and tried to do the best I could and made sure it was all grammatically correct and all that. So I could, hopefully have give it to Dale, then Dale would give it to the senator. And then I wrote another letter, what you'd really want to say, to somebody who was just going off on stuff. And being administrators, and I am wearing blue, I wanted you to know, Paula, but he would, so anyway, I wrote this other letter that just kind of went on and on about, we have better things to do in the legislature than, and it was all the stuff you'd want to say, just like oftentimes we all want to say to people, but you try to keep it here and then have what comes out of your mouth be very nice and polite and all that. So anyway, so I knew Dale pretty well, but not super well. And I was a little bit nervous, but I handed him the second letter, the really snotty letter, and Dale's reading the letter, and he just, how he'd get that kind of look, and he kind of had he'd just kind of do this, and I thought, oh my gosh, I really just I should not have done that, and I'm thinking, because my husband said, oh, he'll get the joke, and I'm like, oh, God, Tom, this is no way, I know he's kicking me out, and all of a sudden, Dale just burst out laughing, and he said, I think we're just going to rip this one up, Mary Ann. I said, I think that's a good idea. And then he read the other letter, and that's the one we sent off. But so he was so funny. And when I hear all these things, and I know he was a disciplinarian and all that, but for me, he just had that great wit that got it. Some people don't get it, or you hope they do, but he got it. So, but the other story I want to tell is really from my good friend Jan Niemeyer, who we lost not too long ago from cancer. But Jan and my husband Tom and I, we were the art department for a while, and I've heard now about the dipsticks and the metal shop and all. I thought he was totally into the arts. I thought that was his main priority, because that's what he made me believe. But so Jan, and we were always trying to, like everything else, trying to earn extra money for our students and do this and that. So Jan was always entering contests, for some art contest, so money would come into the art department and we could use it for equipment or whatever. Anyway, so there was this big contest for Doritos. And Doritos was going to give all this money to the art department, who came up with this great advertisement. And so one of Jan's students had this great idea, and Dale was part of it. He was one of the actors in this video. And it actually went on quite far, and Jan was having, and we were all, writing into Doritos. Yes, vote for this one. We thought that was the best. It was one of those online contests you could vote. Anyway, in the contest, or in the video, the student is cutting class, and he's at the vending machine, and he's buying a bag of Doritos. And as it falls out, and those of you, I'm sure a lot of you remember this, but as the Doritos falls out and the kid gets it, here's Mr. Staley in the video, just looking at this kid. And so he makes the kid, he confiscates the Doritos and tells the kid to get back to class. And the kid walks away, and then the video ends with Mr. Staley in his office with his feet up eating Doritos. And I think that should have won. I thought that was a pretty good one. But anyway, I could go on and on. He just was a great person. And the last thing, I remember so well, and I know I'll start crying now, but when he went to work with my daughter, I said, please take care of her. And he said, oh, I will. And he took care of so many of us, and we'll miss him a lot. Thank you.
I will start by saying I am both honored and surprised to find myself speaking here. I too am saddened by Dale's passing, but in a strange way, I feel strengthened, which is why I'm able to speak here today. My name is Liz Villanueva, and my relationship with Dale was through the lens of a teacher. First, he was one of my parents when his sons were in my class, and he was an administrator, always a familiar face at JDHS. Then He was my vice principal at Zontakahini. This past year, as the Staleys and their support system of family and friends experienced Dale's illness, I was stricken by my inability to cope with the idea of him enduring the pain of the cancer and all that it brings to those who love him. I remember first meeting Dale and Julie in 2005 when I was Matthew's 6th grade teacher. I had been teaching for nearly a decade at that point, but still felt a little nervous about this group of students. They were smart, talking smarter than the average bear. I was honored that Dr. Staley and his wife trusted me to be their son's introduction to middle school. That fall, I had a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old daughter, so my hands at home were full. It turns out during that school year, I also discovered I had colorectal cancer. I believe now that this is part of the reason Dale's experience with this disease has been a difficult process for me. Fully accepting my own reality of having had cancer continues. And for the nature of our relationship, my need to hear Dale's status was unusual, and my reactions to his updates were emotional. When he was my boss as a father, I wanted to do the best by his children, not because he intimidated me, but because he and Julie communicated high expectations. They did this through their words and through their actions. He was proud of both sons' abilities and accomplishments. I believe this is another reason why I processed this so personally. Dale was an involved parent. He was present in his family's life. My mother passed when I was 20. Her illness was short, only a month. But I felt so helpless during that time, and still, I miss her so. I taught both Matthew and Timothy, which makes them part of my family. I didn't want them or Julie to experience the pain. This past May, I saw Tim at Zontakahini Middle School as he was doing a fine job of advocating for the high school music program. I didn't know what to say to him, but I wanted to be near him. I wanted him to know I was thinking of them, so I just stood and watched him pack up gear. And upon seeing me, Tim, much like Dale was often able to do, gave me the pure and simple reaction I needed. He came over and he hugged me. A few days later, I was praying, and as I was thinking of the Staleys, I had a vision, after which I felt a new certainty of strength and understanding of Dale's spirit and my own experiences with my cancer and my mom's passing. In this dream, I was in a cave, alone and walking toward the opening. I moved very slowly because I did not want to keep going, but I did not want to stay in the darkness either. I was afraid. I want to turn back, I thought. And Dale's voice answered, "No, we can't turn back this time." I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. "It's a drop-off," I said. "Can we grow wings?" And he laughed, so I laughed too. Of course, I knew we could not grow wings. Approaching the edge, fear subsided as I registered layers of desert's reds, browns, oranges. I was surrounded by canyon walls, colored and smooth from centuries of wind. It was pure and simple in its complexity. He asked me, already knowing the answer, but checking for my acceptance. "What can we do then?" I turned to find him now standing beside me, his whole face content as he stared out the timeless landscape before us. I, now calm and confident, stated the obvious. "We appreciate it." I knew we were in Australia, seeing the oldest layers of the earth. I knew each band of color had been formed only because individual grains of sand settled and compiled over time. I knew he was referring to more than the scenic beauty. He also meant life, every moment, every action. In seconds, I was able to comprehend millions of years, all of it, and none of it mattering at once, because learning is a process. Dale did make me feel secure. I was grateful to have him as a vice principal these last few years. He helped me to clarify the difference between that which is in our control and which is not. When I needed to improve in an area, he was direct, yet understanding of circumstances. He reminded me one may be relaxed in an approach, but when duties are not fulfilled and the striving does not continue forward, we aren't doing our part. I will miss Dale. I will miss the smile in his eyes that tell me he already knows. I will do my best to honor him by appreciating all that creates this life, this process of the simple and the complex. And I'm still working on the simple.
Hello, my name is Molly Yerkes. I'm the principal at Santagihini Middle School. I'm so touched and honored to have been asked to speak here today. For over 10 years, Dale and I have been colleagues, but for the last 2 years, we have worked closely together at Santagihini. During that time, I have come to greatly admire what a gentle and gracious man he is. In the days to come, we will greatly miss his sincere smile. I do want to share one humorous recollection the office staff and I have of Dale. We were focusing on encouraging school spirit in the fall, and to do that, our teachers had scheduled a Spirit Week. On this particular day, the theme was Crazy Hat or Crazy Hair Day. In the morning, we were all talking and laughing about the funny headpieces, but as the day wore on, we focused on our daily tasks and went about our business, forgetting about the theme of the day. Late in the afternoon, a man came in, outraged about something that had happened concerning one of our students. Our front office staff directed the man to Dale's office. Dale professionally welcomed the man and patiently listened while the man yelled and stormed and ranted. If you've ever seen Dale's office at Santagihini, it's a bit of a fishbowl, so we all had a clear view of what was going on. With his quiet and tranquil manner, Dale was trying to calm the gentleman down and reassure him that he would investigate his concerns. But all of Dale's finely honed de-escalation strategies just were not working. What Dale had forgotten was that he still wore a neon green hat with bouncing eyeballs on his head. On a serious note, Dale committed his professional life to students and education. He did not base his decisions on what was easy or what was popular, but instead on what he believed was right and just. He touched so many lives in so many ways. He was a man his family can be proud of, and a testament to that is the number of people here today. Thank you so much.
I'm wondering if we've hit an hour yet. I'm not really wondering. Our next speaker is John Pugh. John has known Dale for many years, worked with him at UAS, and recently as enthusiastic Rotary Club members.
Julie, Matthew, and Timothy, as well as all the family and friends here. I just want to convey my personal sense of loss and the loss for the whole Juneau Gastineau Rotary family that he was a part of. You know, I first met Dale when he was a staff member for Senator or Representative Duncan at the time. I was a young assistant director in the Division of Social Services who had just moved to Juneau. And from Anchorage, Dale was, of course, one of my mentors in getting to know how to work with the legislature. He was one of the best staff members I've worked with in my 36 years with Health and Social Services and with the university. Dale always did his homework, an excellent role model for all you students out there. He knew exactly how we should proceed and what was going to be successful. And I thank him for those many years that he worked with Jim Duncan and for the community, and particularly for Health and Social Services and for the university. After his legislative career, as mentioned by Paul, Dale prepared himself for his next professional journey. He worked in various roles in the educational system while completing 2 endorsements at the University of Alaska Southeast, one in educational technology and one in educational leadership. He also served 1 year as the interim director of the School of Career Education at UAS. I really enjoyed working with him in that role, and I think it really brought him back to his roots as an automotive instructor back in the Unified School District in Kansas. He now had the opportunity to administer an automotive program as well as other technical career programs. I know that many of the rest of you have covered Dale's educational career, so I'm going to skip a decade now to when Dale joined the Juneau Gastineau Rotary, and that was July 5th, 2007. By that time, Dale was the assistant principal at JDHS and was looking for a service club that met in the early morning so he could participate. We met that criteria with our 7 a.m. start time. Candy Barons sponsored his application to join the Juneau Gastineau Rotary Club. Dale quickly became an active member of the club, participating that summer in our annual fundraiser, bulb sales. Once school started in the fall, Dale let it be known that he would have to be what we call an early scooter so he could be to school on time. That means that you leave the meeting early, and Dale did frequently. The president-elect at the time was Rosemary Hagovic, and when she was putting together her board and her chairs for the committees, and she immediately realized that the sergeant-at-arms position would be a perfect fit for Dale because that activity took place early in the meetings, and then he could leave and go to school. Dale accepted, and the rest of this is history. He remained in that role until his death. For those of you who are not Rotarians, the sergeant-at-arms is an individual who collects fines and what we call happy bucks from members who report interesting activities and events going on in their lives. It has always been the best part of the Juneau Gastineau Rotary's program, to the Sergeant-at-Arms, and of course Dale, as many of you have mentioned, brought with him an enormous sense of humor, wit, and almost had something humorous to say about everything anybody talked about at the meeting. It was wonderful. It was always a wonderful part of our program. He led this, Dale, as you all know, was quite proud of his family and their accomplishments, so he'd often start off with paying a couple of happy bucks himself in order to report something about Matthew or Timothy, what they had achieved at school, what they had done in that week. On occasion, he would even bring Matthew to the club. Matthew would accompany his dad and would also talk a little bit. Oftentimes his dad encouraged him to talk about his achievements at the club, and we all really enjoyed that. Dale also frequently paid happy bucks to report on JDHS accomplishments, both in sports as well as academic achievements, and particularly things mentioned earlier about some of the things that the vocational programs had done across the country and the awards they had gotten. Dale was really proud of JDHS and was just always a great ambassador for the high school. Rotary is also known for its exchange programs, and Dale took a special interest in the Juneau-Gastineau exchange students and assisted them in making the transition to an American educational system. He frequently would take them with him to the school as he, quote, early scooted from the meeting. The students knew that if they had any questions, issues, or problems at school, Dale would be there to help them. Many of you probably don't know that Dale was a gambler, at least a Juneau-Gastineau Rotary gambler. Each week we hold a 50-50 raffle. We have a deck of cards with the sayings from our Rotary four-way test. 51 of the cards have the last three sayings. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be fair to all concerned? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? One card has the first saying, is it the truth? If you draw that card, you win the raffle. Dale participated every single week. He won numerous times. In fact, I had our treasurer look it up, and since 2011, he has won 5 times. John Wynn said that one time as Dale was getting ready to draw the winning ticket, he shouted out, "Just give him the money." And sure enough, Dale drew the winning ticket again. I remember another time when I was president that we jokingly talked at the board meeting about giving Dale a grub stake to take to Las Vegas and win the club a pot of money. In recognition of Dale's contributions to the club, and particularly celebrating his many raffle wins, the Juneau-Gastineau Rotary this month has renamed our raffle the Dale Staley Raffle. So each time that we have it, we talk about Dale and his many exploits in the club. Dale was a wonderful member of the Juneau-Gastineau Rotary Club. He not only was our Sergeant at Arms, but he contributed to our many service projects, particularly such as last week's Day at the Lake. I remember well Dale and his outfit cooking and hot dogs and serving students and children, and he loved the service projects that we did with kids. You know, Julie, Matthew, and Timothy, I just want to thank you, and thank you for our members of our club for sharing Dale with us over the years. He's become a real part of our Rotary family. And we'd like to also extend our invitation to you to be honorary members of our club. You might even enjoy participating sometimes in the Dale Staley raffle. Who knows, one of you may have his luck. Thank you.
Before I introduce our last speaker, I'd like to invite the students who are participating in the pep band to exit the auditorium and convene in the band room, where you're looking forward to hearing you play. Steve Allwine is our final speaker. He has known Dale for many years in many capacities, but the defining passion that they shared is a passion for cars as founding members of the Juneau Dipsticks.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is my privilege to be here on behalf of the Juneau Dipsticks Car Club. You know, I've known Dale since he worked with Pete Caron for Senator Duncan back in the early 90s. Marianne, that letter that he said he didn't send, I got it. Always wonder who wrote that. Frankly, for all the time that I had known Dale, I was unaware that he had attained a PhD in education. I'm not surprised, but it really just never came up because that wasn't the way he presented himself. In my dealings with Dale, I found Dale to be personable, thoughtful, and considerate. And we had more than a few things in common, including a love of race cars, a love of cars in general, and apparently the inability to not catch fish. I'll get back to that one in a minute. You know, from my perspective, Dale was always fascinated by cars. He loved the look, the sound, the smell, the feel, It didn't matter whether it was an old car, a new car, a classic car, an antique, or even a unique car. Didn't matter. And from the Dipsticks' perspective and from my perspective, Dale was truly a car guy. And in the car business, you can't attain a higher compliment than that. That's kind of like the doctorate. But in addition to that, Dale was something even a bit more special. And this is where I'm going to throw water on the can't fish. Dale was a fisherman. Dale was an exceptional fisherman. And I suspect that's going to take a little bit of explanation on my part. Yeah, it does involve fins, but not necessarily the fins on a fish. It involves the fins like on an old car. You see, one of Dale's best qualities was the fact that he had the ability to recognize a way to interest a young person and to keep them interested. And if you could keep that person interested in something, find what motivated them, you could keep them interested and you could teach them a little extra something. And just on a personal note, I'm a direct product of just such an educator. So I really do appreciate that about Dale. Now, you may or may not know that the first car show held in Juneau was the basis for the Juneau Dipsticks Car Club. When the car show was first conceived, it was actually conceived by Stan Ridgway. The question asked about the event was, okay, so if we raise any money, what do we do with the money? And I really can't tell you exactly how it happened, but I suspect that there may have been some significant conversations between Stan Ridgway and Dale. And the result initially was to provide proceeds for activities within JDHS that sort of had some limited funding, the metal shop, the auto shop, art club, cross-country running, things like that. Now, Dale's involvement initially was to identify those kind of programs and to facilitate the disbursement of the funds. And as time progressed and we kind of moved along, Dale proposed forming the scholarship fund as a more effective way to provide a continuing educational benefit to young people. Over the past number of years, the Car Club has collected significant scholarship funds, and with Dale's guidance as a member of the Dipsticks Scholarship Committee, we have provided a number of scholarships to young people in Juneau, and we're frankly quite proud of the guidance that Dale gave in that. It is also my pleasure to announce on behalf of the Juneau Dipsticks Car Club the formal naming of our scholarship program for Dale as the Dale Staley Memorial Scholarship Fund. And from all of the Dipsticks to a very special car guy, and in recognition of his service to our organization to further enhance the renaming of the fund, the Juneau Dipsticks are providing an additional $500 donation to that fund to kind of get that kicked off to a good start. To our friend Dale, a great car guy, a great educator, Dale, you will be missed.
I appreciated the story, Deb talking about how the boys would come over from Harborview after school. Some of my earliest memories of both Timothy and Matthew are as they took the short walk themselves to come hang out in their dad's office. Dale was the first voice my oldest daughter Carlin recognized other than mine and her father's. I brought her in at 10 days, 2 weeks old, to meet the staff, and Dale came out of the office and said, "Hey, look at that." And this tiny little baby actively turned her head towards the sound of his voice. It was one of those moments where I thought, how lucky we are in this community to be raising our kids together, and that as a community with each generation we're contributing in such positive ways. The slideshow today was created by Dale's sons. Many of you here sent in photos for us to share. Included in the slideshow is the Doritos commercial that Marianne referenced. We want to make sure, as Marianne did, to give credit to the late Jan Niemeyer and her students for featuring Mr. Staley. The pep band will play throughout the slideshow, and once the slides are done, we'll raise the screen and they will continue to play as we exit the auditorium. Please remember that there are memorial tables set up in the commons, as well as a table for the Juneau Dipsticks Dale Staley Memorial Scholarship Fund if you wish to contribute. Julie, Matthew, and Timothy will be in the Commons during the reception for you to offer your condolences. As is mentioned in the program, Dale's family wants to express their gratitude for all of the cards and well wishes sent during his illness. They brought smiles to his face day after day. I was lucky enough to visit with Dale in May at Virginia Mason towards the end of his time there. I can attest to the fact that reading the mail each day as it arrived brought Dale a lot of joy. Thank you all for being here today and joining us in this celebration for Dr. Dale Staley.